Well, good morning, everyone. In yesterday's report, we talked a lot about that big low pressure system that'll be forming in the Atlantic, the one that's going to produce some very, very rough seas across the Atlantic, and it's just going to sit there as a massive cyclone moving north toward Iceland. Well, a lot of our attention, of course, has got to go back to the Pacific Ocean, where we're going to watch the next few systems begin. The first one is right here. This shortwave coming over parts of the Four Corner States is going to produce a system that goes toward the Midwest. I'll show you that in detail in a few moments. But most of us are very concerned about this little wave right here. You see, that came off of Asia, Japan yesterday. It's emerged out into the Pacific Ocean. And the models continue to want to take this low, pull it through the flow here, and just dive it into a deep trough that's over the western United States. And it's just going to go across the country as a big bowling ball that could potentially produce a large and disruptive storm system. So I want to make sure you understand something before I go any farther with this. This forecast for next week's winter storm system is still very speculative because the feature we're watching is still quite subtle. It hasn't made it even into the Gulf of Alaska, nor has it made it over the western United States yet. So I'm going to show you what we know right now about it based upon model evidence, but I just want you to also see that we're pretty far out in figuring out where this thing's going to go. So here it is right now. It doesn't look like much, does it? It's that feature right there, that little wave. Now we still have our high latitude blocking. We've seen persistent troughing off of the west coast, that negative PNA signal, and there's our Greenland ridge we've been talking about for the last couple weeks. Let's watch where this wave right here goes. So if you can, keep your attention right here, because as we go forward through Wednesday into Thursday and finally into Friday, that's all that it is. But it's feeding into a deeper trough that's here over the western United States. And as that digs in, here it is, it's going to eventually come right into California, which means this is going to be a system that dumps snow in the Cascades, but some very big snow in the northern California ranges like the Klamath Mountains, and then of course into the Sierra Nevada mountains. What's aiding this again is all the high latitude blocking out ahead of it. So the low then gets here by Monday morning. It tries to eject into the plains by Tuesday. Now there's a couple of very interesting points about this. If the current trajectory forecast by the European model, and remember this is 150 hours from now, has right, we're going to see an inflection. So what's going to happen is it's going to come in with a positive tilt into California and then have a negative tilt once it gets here into the central part of the United States. Those negatively tilted systems here can draw deep moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. It's just what happens when the trough tilts negatively, and that's going to produce a system that's going to be, well, quite expansive in what it can do. Now where it goes next Tuesday into Wednesday and Thursday is it just kind of slowly moves its way across the country, such that by the end of next week we're talking about the potential for a big East Coast system. Now, as I started off with, this is still a bit speculative. We're watching one small wave that today is way over here do all of this. It's possible, but we just need to keep an eye out for any sort of changes. So I kind of put together a map that's going to distill the bigger picture here. It, in the background, shows you precipitation anomalies, so differences from normal from the European model. So I've kind of labeled a few things, but one of the areas I'm really concerned about is, given the trajectory of these next two systems, denoted by the arrows, the dry slot of each of them looks like it's going to be coming into parts of Colorado, Kansas, the panhandles, and back into New Mexico. And this has been an area that has just continued to see very, very dry conditions, and the drought's gotten worse. I'll comment more on that in just a few moments. But this is one of those systems that really just works hard on kind of pushing us toward the right direction to erasing some of the widespread drought across the country, from California to the northern plains, throughout the Mid-South and eastern Corn Belt. These are all areas that continue to need more precipitation. Now, on the temperature side of it, those deep troughs in the west maintain the forecast, keeping things very cold for the next 2 weeks across the west. One of the bigger changes, though, was that the latest model trends actually got even colder for the west. And if there's one place in the country where the coldest air stays anchored, it's actually where I am this morning here in Montana. You can see over the next 2 weeks, brutally cold air in that area, and that extends up in the Canadian prairie. By the way, if you've never been to Bozeman, you got to come here. It is absolutely beautiful. I'd never been here. I can't wait to see it today in the daylight, even just coming in last night. What a beautiful place. Okay, sorry about that. Here it is. Before this got here, the last 72 hours, we saw rain and some storms in the Central Valley of California, heavier snows in the Sierra Nevada. Remember, there's that big subtropical ridge still spinning around here, so we've actually seen quite a bit of rain anchoring itself here over the Tennessee Valley as well, some into New England. On the snow side of this, you can see that parts of the Sierra Nevada picked up some places over 2 feet of snow. We've also seen some snow here just in the last 72 hours that has hit around Yellowstone, the northern edge of the Snake River Valley, and into Montana and across the northern plains. Now, today's all hazards weather map, though, a lot of folks are talking about the dense fog that we see throughout the Midwest and throughout the South. Very, very large area here that's dealing with fog this morning. But we've issued winter storm advisories for this first system coming out into parts of Kansas, Nebraska, and there's still wind chill warnings that are across the northern tier of the United States. So let's see what the big deal is here. Start with the fog. I pulled off this morning's soundings. This is ILX, that's right here in the middle part of Illinois, and you can see the temperature inversion at the surface. I then went down here. This would be the sounding, if I can get it to click there. That was launched in Springfield, Missouri. There it goes. Again, see their temperature inversion saturated near the surface. This is a great example of these low-level inversions. And even down into Oklahoma, this would be the OUN. So this is right there in Norman, Oklahoma. Look at their temperature inversion this morning. So that's where your fog's coming from. It's also down here in the kind of in the marine boundary layer. For example, going to Slidell, you can see that saturated near the surface, very dry aloft. Now, where this is going to go in the near term, I think we can use the high-res NAM to see this. So there's the frontal boundary. That's where all the rain is. It's on the northern edge of that big subtropical ridge. So the system comes out of Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah. Ahead of it, heavy rains are spreading into parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and eastern and southern Kansas. And then that moves quickly into Missouri, Illinois, with some possibility of some freezing rain on the northern side of this. Now, the dry slot in any system is back here. That's where there's convergent flow in the jet stream. It comes over the mountains. It just pushes dry air into these areas. So you can see the effect of that limiting the moisture getting back farther to the west. But this was just through 9 a.m. tomorrow. As we go throughout the day, you see the possibility for some decent snow into parts of Nebraska, South Dakota, and Iowa. I'll show you what snowfall totals look like in a moment. But this system kind of fizzles out as it gets farther to the east. Could be some snow in eastern Iowa, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin on this on Friday, and then scattered rain, and maybe some embedded thunderstorms here to the south and east. But it's that system kind of giving way to the one that's coming behind it. And the system that's coming behind it is better seen in the European model, which runs out longer. So here's system number 1 through Friday. It pulls east. System number 2, ready? Out ahead of it, there is going to be a band of rain. This is on Saturday, but this is the big guy right here we're watching. Coming in Saturday, spreading through the west, diving into the Four Corners states. Watch that again. This is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. This is a big snowmaker for the west. This is a big rainmaker for the west. And then this system, by the time we get into Monday, begins to eject into Colorado. So a lot of west-facing slopes here pick up a lot of snow. But what you're going to see again, see that same dry slot feature? That's the area that continues to get missed. But from Wyoming through the Dakotas, eastern Montana, and eventually into Minnesota, we're talking about the potential for some heavy snow. We're also going to watch in the southern plains and mid-south on Monday into Tuesday for the risk of strong to severe storms. And that low wraps itself out. Look at that. Let's just do that again. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday wraps itself out, possibly delivering quite a bit heavy snow here with rain, very heavy rain out ahead of it. Now, I'm going to stop it right here because, yes, this system continues to go east, but we don't fully resolve the behavior of this trough just yet. So let's get into some of the numbers on this one. First of all, severe weather. Storm Prediction Center's already got their day 6 and day 7 outlook for severe storms, centering them down here in the Red River Valley, the south toward Arkansas, and then over the lower Mississippi River Valley next Monday into Tuesday. We're going to watch this trend carefully. Total precipitation out of this, there will be a region right in through here that picks up between 1 and 3 inches of rainfall. On the backside, this is all snow. You can see the effect of the dry slot, and then on the systems as they come into the west, really loaded with precipitation. Now, I know a lot of folks are curious about the snow. I'm going to show you the operational model run first. So this is through Saturday morning. So we could see that coming out of parts of Nebraska and South Dakota, northern Iowa, into southern Wisconsin, there's the potential here for more than 4 inches of snow. But watch this next system, ready, coming into the west. As it dives in here, we could get up to 4 feet of snow in the Sierra Nevada, 10 to 30 inches in the Cascades. And then that system next Monday spreads its snow through the Rocky Mountains and then ejects. See it right there? Now, this is an individual model run. We cannot rely on it yet to understand if we have this much snow in the works. So what I want to do is I want to show you the probability over the next 10 days of 3 inches. It's almost a near certainty in these areas and, of course, in the west. Here's the chance of getting at least 6. You now see we're up to about an 80% chance here of getting at least 6 inches of snow. And here's the probability of getting a foot of snow out of this. So when we see the ensembles picking up on it, it lends to more confidence. So we can look at this one other way. Who's going to be getting the moisture and who's not? I've been showing you these maps for the last week or so. In the colder, drier air through the Canadian prairie, very, just too dry. We're not going to see much in the way of precipitation here. The driest places, though, right here in the high plains, the western plains, where those dry slots continue to hit. So this is the probability of less than 1/10 of an inch of rain, and you can see it's very high here. Florida into Cuba and down here in the Caribbean, still under the influence of the ridge. On the other side of that, probability of 1 inch, very wet in the west, of course, as the system dives down. But now this is expanded farther into the upper Midwest and plains, northern plains, with a heavier precipitation. All right, one last map on the precip side of it. Week 1 precipitation anomalies are on the left. Week 2 are on the right. So what we need to do is after we get out to about next Wednesday, we need to see how far to the east this storm system goes. We've seen a bit of a drier trend in the models for the Northwest. I think it's a little too aggressive here, but the reason for this is just the depth of the trough that's left here. So you keep just a deep trough in this area, it limits the western flow from the Pacific to deliver moisture to this, to the coastal areas of Washington and Oregon. Now, just coming back one last time to what's going on here in the plains. In today's report, I put down a map that shows from September 1 through December 6th, precipitation ranks by climate district. And we just look at where it's been dry and who's going to stay dry with this pattern. So you saw improvements here, but this area continues to have, like we talked about, those dry slots coming in. And I pulled off Garden City, Kansas's precipitation graph this year. They're currently at 47% of normal. The last time Garden City saw more than 1/10 of an inch of precipitation was 75 days ago. And remember, this past weekend on Friday, they had that massive dust storm. Okay, let's finish it up with temperatures. I'll talk about South America really quick, and we'll go from there. So there's today's highs. As we go forward into Thursday and Friday, the warmth stays anchored in the south. It stays across the east. The coldest air this weekend comes into the west. We continue to see really cold conditions in parts of Montana compared to normal. But after next Monday, when the depth of that trough is really realized, that's when the really cold air is going to be there. Does it advance east after the middle of the month? There is shots of that. And as I showed you earlier, we're going to see in that December 14 through 20 time period, a return toward normal winter temperatures with shots of cooler air coming through. But the coldest air continues to stay anchored in the west. At the end of today's report, just read about what's going on in South America. We actually have better precipitation coming into Brazil's eastern growing areas, and Mato Grosso is going to see near normal precipitation, slight drier bias. But the problem area continues to be Argentina, and yeah, there are some chances of some weekend storms down here, but overall the forecast is drier, and that's where the greatest deficits in root zone soil moisture sit. So I'll look forward to talking about this again tomorrow. This is a very active system setup, and we'll just keep going through it. I'll talk to you then. Thanks.